if the P5+1 reach an agreement with Iran, what then? What happens in Israel?
Well, it's a very big if, first of all. I mean, I think, you know, there's obviously an opportunity here. I'm still skeptical whether they're going to be able to achieve a permanent agreement, and whether, but if one is achieved, the real question is, can a permanent agreement be achieved that will be acceptable to Israel? It's going to be hard enough to achieve an agreement between Iran and the United States that's mutually acceptable to both those two countries. But one that's also going to be acceptable to Israel, that's the question. I think the key issue here, in terms of the details of what a comprehensive agreement will look like, concerns whether Iran is going to be allowed some kind of enrichment capability. For the Iranians, that is clearly absolutely essential. I mean,
and it's allowed under NPT.
And it's allowed under NPT, and the Iranians are, I think there's no way they're going to accept an agreement that requires their complete dismantling of a program that they have they've sunk billions and billions of dollars into, and not to mention a vast amount of their own national prestige and domestic support. So I think it's just inconceivable that they would accept an agreement that didn't provide them with some enrichment capability. And the United States has expressed a willingness to accept that, a low level of enrichment capability, as long as it's very, very tightly monitored. So we're talking basically, you know, something like 3.5% to 5% enrichment capability. Now, at the moment, the Israeli government's stated position is that there must be no capability at all. No enrichment capability, complete dismantling of Iran's nuclear program. And so the question is, will the Israelis climb down from that position? Will they be willing to accept? And this is tricky because, on the one hand, as you note, you know, Iran is allowed, according to the terms of the NPT, to enrich uranium for civilian purposes, as long as it adheres to the terms of the treaty and perhaps signs the additional protocol, which allows very intrusive monitoring. But the problem is the new generation of centrifuges, we're going into the details here, are the new generation of centrifuges that the Iranians are installing allow it potentially to turn that low-grade enriched uranium quite quickly, within, you know, months, into the military-grade nuclear weapons capable uranium. And the question then is, will the Americans be able to detect that? And there's not a huge reason to have a whole lot of confidence in the American intelligence agency's ability to detect an Iranian breakout. I mean, you know, the Americans didn't know when that the Syrians were developing, were building a nuclear reactor. They previously didn't know how close, many years ago, Iraq had come. They've been caught blindsided by the North Koreans on more than one occasion. Just recently, the Pentagon itself said that they're not confident on their abilities to detect secret Iranian activities in this respect. So the question is, can Israel be assured enough that with a civilian low-level enrichment capability, that it will be so tightly monitored, and that there's no way that the Iranians will be able to achieve this breakout capacity? I can't imagine Prime Minister Netanyahu himself, given his very hawkish statements on Iran, given the fact that he, I think, personally sees this as his kind of mission in life, not to make peace with the Palestinians, but to save Israel from a nuclear Iran, that Prime Minister Netanyahu himself would accept this. But I do think that many within the Israeli security establishment will accept this, will recognize that really an agreement, this is the only kind of agreement that's feasible, and therefore that Israel will, if it doesn't agree to this, you know, the only option is to carry out a military strike, a unilateral military strike, which with the exception perhaps of Prime Minister Netanyahu and maybe a few other individuals, nobody in the Israeli political or security establishment wants. So at the end of the day, if an agreement is reached, even if Prime Minister Netanyahu is deeply unhappy with it, there may be very little he can do.